Welcome everybody to the Build Up Dietitians Diversity webinar. My name is Maria Victoria Salazar. My first name is Maria. I usually go by Victoria because I'm a Latina woman and I come from a very large Latino family and everybody's named Maria. so I go by Victoria just to distinguish myself from everybody else. It's a pleasure to be with you all. I'm going to be moderating this discussion along with Brianna Theus. Brianna, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you all for being here with us today. I'm very excited for this opportunity. So I am Brianna. I am a Black dietitian. I am first generation Haitian American. I am currently working at the Rent-Free Center. I work with eating disorders. And I also have a private practice working with BIPOC patients, people in larger bodies, LGBTQIA+, and men.
All right. I think I should probably say for me, besides my name and my identity, I'm a clinical dietitian. I work for Morrison Healthcare in Southern Georgia. I am the dietitian at a long-term care facility in two rural county hospitals that are mostly used for a subacute inpatient rehab or swing bed, and those are my duties right now. I'm very interested in diabetes and obtaining a CDE or whatever the new CDCES, whatever the new acronyms are for that certification, and that's what I'm interested in. So yeah, so let's go to Lubna. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Lubna Qureshi. I live in Austin, and I'm a Pakistani American. I've been living in US for past 50 years. I'm a mom of four, and I am a military spouse, actually retired military spouse now. And I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, and I took the non-traditional way, and nowadays I'm teaching as an adjunct lecturer at a private college here in Austin, and I also teach at a private university as a visiting professor. And I am actually in the process of building my own business, so it is going to be launching, I believe, in just 2 months, so almost there. I'm very excited about that.
Congratulations.
Yes,
yeah, congratulations. That sounds awesome.
Thank you very much. I just want to tell you a little bit about myself, just a short story. I was born in Ghana in West Africa, and I spent 17 years of my life in Pakistan. And then I got married and came to US, and my husband joined military, so we traveled all around the world. So lived 3 and I think around 4 years in England. So when people ask me, where are you from? So I tell them I'm from everywhere. Because, you know, with the military lifestyle, you just live just for 4 years in one place and then 3 years in another place. So you are just from every place, basically. So this is how I am.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it's cool to be a human of the world, not be in one place. So that's awesome. All right, let's go to Whitney.
Hi, yes, I'm Whitney. I'm actually originally from Austin, so it's nice to meet an Austinite. My dad was in the military, so I come from a big military family as well. But I live in Memphis, Tennessee now. Married, we have a toddler, and I'm a registered dietitian, registered nurse, registered yoga teacher, and I'm currently working on my doctorate to be a psychiatric nurse practitioner. So I really enjoy mental health and being able to combine the field of nutrition with that. I have a private practice, so I specialize in treating eating disorders. And I really have loved it. I've been in private practice for about 1.5 years. Prior to that, I was the nutrition and nursing director of a residential PHP and IOP eating disorder treatment facility. And then I worked as a pediatric trauma nurse. So I am a bit of an adrenaline junkie. My specialty is in eating disorders and trauma. I've worked at our local sexual assault center and did a lot of work in anti-trafficking. So I'm very passionate about teaching other dietitians the intersection of how trauma in our body and trauma and eating disorders. So that's me.
All right. Nice to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. Tejal, would you like to go?
Yeah. Hey, welcome everyone. And I really want to thank you guys for giving us this opportunity to be here. My name is Tejal Pathak, and I'm originally from India. And I'm a registered dietitian, licensed in Texas. I'm in Houston. Wow. And I'm certified diabetes educator as well. And I think the new name is Certified Diabetes Care and Education Specialist.
Great.
It was hard to remember that long name, but my interests are mainly with diabetes, and I'm currently lead clinical dietitian at one of the hospitals here in Houston. And I was recognized as I was recognized Young Dietitian of the Year. I think it was back in 2013. So I have been here for Houston forever, I guess.
Yeah, Houston's an amazing place to do medicine with the huge medical center over there. My sister, she's a perfusionist, and she studied over there at the Texas Heart Institute. So yeah, it's an amazing place to be. But welcome, we're glad to have you.
Yes.
All right, how about Melissa?
Yes. Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you all. My name is Melissa Solano, and I am connecting today from California, sunny California. It's 90 degrees out here today. And I actually just relocated back to California because I did my master's degree and all my dietetic studies in Ohio. So I went to the Ohio State University, and but I am originally from Peru, so I am a Latina dietitian, so I'm also representing the Latino community today, and I am happy to be here, and I feel like I really connect with what Lubna said earlier, because I also feel like I am from everywhere. I probably haven't traveled or lived in as many places, but throughout the years I've just been relocating from place to place, so I feel like I'm here to stay now and hopefully stay here for a long time. So my interests are in chronic disease prevention and management. I really like diabetes, so I also want to become a CDCES. That's my first step in working towards that credentialing, is remembering the name of it. And I'm currently working at iHealth Labs. So it's a company, both a technology and patient care company. We work with devices so that they can monitor their chronic diseases, and we also offer outpatient dietitian services. So it's a really nice mix, and so far I really like connecting with the patients. So I am glad to be here, glad to be a dietitian, and glad to also do future mentoring for students that, you know, like us, are trying to become dietitians and really diversify the profession.
Awesome. That sounds really cool. So, all right. Last but not least, Mr. Marty.
Hey everyone, I'm Marty Yadrick. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. I normally live in Kansas City, Missouri, but I'm in Los Angeles right now, where we have a home. My specialty area is nutrition informatics, which is, you know, the use of technology and dietetics. I work for Computrition, which is a food nutrition management software company, where I've been for 27 years. Before that, I was clinical dietitian in Kansas City in the Midwest. My minority identities are, I'm a member of the LGBTQIA+ community. Also, as a male, I'm a part of one of the underrepresented groups in dietetics, because only 5% of dietitians are male. And then looking at everybody on our panel today, I'm also here representing old people. So, and my partner and I have been together for 36 years and been married for 12.
Wow.
So glad to be here. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. So I guess we should start getting into, now that we know everybody, let's see. Let's start getting into our second question. Brianna, would you like to pose the second question to someone?
Sure. Let's start with Whitney. What interested you in becoming a dietitian? How did you learn about dietetics? And did you have anyone in your community that was a dietitian that you could maybe look up to?
I knew I was going to get this question. I was prepping today on the email. Yeah, so I actually was a college athlete, and I had suffered a pretty substantial knee injury. And as I was rehabbing is when I actually discovered nutrition. And just like what it could do. And at the time I went to I played basketball at a Division I university. It was kind of a mid-level. But nutrition was one of the things in the science department that I could do, and it also fit with my basketball schedule, just to be totally transparent. But my advisor, she was Nigerian, and she studied HIV. And so that's actually how I got my start in the field of nutrition and dietetics. She would go in the summers and she would work with Nigerian women with HIV, breastfeeding. And so I originally wanted to become a dietitian so I could work with the HIV and AIDS population. And that's what I did for a number of years. And I got to study at St. Jude in Memphis and really learn in their pediatric and adolescent HIV clinic. I did not know any dietitians, nutritionists in my community until I got to college, unfortunately, especially since I'm from Austin. But being with my professor and my advisor, she opened up just a new world for me, not just in terms of HIV and women, but just of having another Black professor. And she was just so great. And I have so much gratitude. Ironically, I know this wasn't part of the question, but I think I am so passionate about representation because I actually didn't match. Because I was a college athlete, when I went to apply for the matching process, I didn't have all the hours needed for work. And it was because the NCAA had very strict, and still does, strict regulations of work hours. And she advocated for me. I mean, she sent letter after letter, would call internship directors. And I just, to this day, it just has always meant so much to me that she did that. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, I actually didn't know what an RD was until my junior year of college, as well. So I kind of have that in this, the same with you. I was planning to go to medical school, but I started working with a neurosurgeon, and he was, I think, as many surgeons are, just a very straightforward kind of, some people could say really rough type of guy. But he was like, oh, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't go to medical school. It's, you can do something much better, and then, I also was just really disenfranchised, disenchanted with the process, of getting to medical school. And I just kind of really realized it wasn't for me. And so that became kind of a low point in my life, because I felt like I was giving up on something that would, make my family proud, and make me someone, put me in a prestigious place. I felt like I was giving that up. Fortunately, the surgeon that I was working for, even though he was very kind of rough, he was very nice, and he gave me very good advice, and he was like, well, you don't have to quit the medical field at all. He's like, what do you like about it? What do you like in school? And what about it from school do you like? And I was like, well, I really like, the metabolic biochemistry and, kind of, learning a lot about how simple things can really affect you, especially something like food. And so he was like, well, you should become a registered dietitian. That just makes sense to me. And I don't know what that is, and he was like, just Google it. You'll be fine, And so that's honestly how I was introduced to dietetics. And I'm really glad I took his advice, because otherwise I wouldn't have known what an RD was or that they even existed. So I never really met an RD until an RD was my professor in grad school and my advisor, and she really pulled for me as well. And I still stay in touch with her, and I love talking to her. So I kind of like hear a lot of my story and your story as well. So what you were saying. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything to add? Anyone want to discuss how they were interested in becoming an RD?
Well, for me, it's a little funny. My sister's a dietitian, and she's 8 years older. And people always say, did you want to follow in her footsteps? And it wasn't really that way. Like, she started out as a chemistry major and then got her master's in foods research. It was more of that area of it, but then ended up working in cooperative extension and finally being a university professor for 30 years till she retired. For me, I guess it just created an awareness of what the profession was. My interest was a lot more in health and wellness and overall fitness and the relationship of nutrition to that. So very different pathways, but it certainly made me aware. I might not have been aware, especially 40 years ago, what a dietitian was or what they did if it weren't for her being in the profession.
Well, that's really neat. It's really cool that you had someone so close to you that was a dietitian, because I had no idea what a dietitian was for a very long time, but that's really neat. And it's really cool how dietitians, like you said, your sister was in one aspect of dietetics and you went a whole different way, which is really the cool thing about our industry, and about our field. So that's really nice, What about you, Lubna?
Yeah, I would like to actually add another story here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I actually got my bachelor's from Pakistan. I was very young at that time, and then I got married, came to US. I always wanted to go back to school to get a master's degree. And so after I got married, came here, so it just, life took over. My husband joined military, and with the military lifestyle, so back then we used to move every three years. So every time I wanted to go back to school, I would either get pregnant or we would move to a new duty station. So it just happened like that. So fast forward many years, I actually started school when my youngest daughter, she started kindergarten. So, and I had no idea what the field of dietetics was. Initially, I wanted to go to med school. So then we thought about it, and my husband said that, especially with kids and with our lifestyle, with the military lifestyle, it may not work. And I'm glad I listened to him, because of course it was not going to work. So then I thought about the PA program, and I started to take core courses. And we were stationed in San Antonio at that time, and I was very lucky that somehow I stumbled on at the UT Health Sciences Center San Antonio, and they had started just this fresh program of dietetics there. So I met with the advisor. I had no idea what the program is. I was still taking core courses, and during that time, I took the nutrition course. And I absolutely fell in love with that. And that's when I knew that this is what I'm going to do. This is who I'm going to be. And this is what my passion is. So, and I had already got in touch with the program of dietetics, but it was still like I had not made up my mind. But when I took that course of nutrition, so I mean, I'm sitting here getting goosebumps because I still remember the feeling of the class when we used to work on making plans or doing a research. So I that's when I knew that this is it. I just found my calling then. So, and I was lucky enough, I got admitted into the program. It was a very small program. So, and before that, I had no idea what the profession of dietetics is or anything about that. But that's how my journey began. So, and looking back, I think there is not even a single moment in my life when I regretted being a dietitian. I absolutely love it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect. Good. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I love being a dietitian. You know, I've only been a dietitian for 3 years, but so far it's been great. It's been a great 3 years. So I'm glad you love it because I love it too. You know?
It's a very rewarding field.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love how, you know, it's so diverse, you know, the positions and the fact that you can go from one thing to another, you know, and not have to go and get a new whole education, you know, is wonderful. I love that about it. So, Brianna, what is your story? You know, what interests you to become an RD?
So actually, growing up, I wanted to be a chef. I wanted to be a pastry chef, and my parents were paying for school, and they were like, "No, you're not doing that. We want you to get a traditional education." I mean, I'm sure there were some like race things going on in that thought process. They were like, "I want you to get a traditional education." And I was like, I don't know what I want to do. My mom is an occupational therapist, and she was like, you like food so much, why don't you just be a dietitian? And I was like, okay, I have no idea what that is, but let me just go to school for it and I'll find out. So when I was in school, I actually wanted to work with malnutrition in third world countries after going back to Haiti, where my parents are from. That is what was really on my heart to work with. And then it kind of led into something else, which is eating disorders, still malnutrition, but in a different way. And I love it. I absolutely love it. It's great.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great story. I loved it. Melissa, what is your story? What made you become an RD?
Yes. So I actually I thought I was done with school. I got my bachelor's in business administration, and I went through a period of my life where, you know, I started to learn the importance of nutrition in our lives. You know, I noticed the difference it made in my energy and my health, and all of a sudden I had this call to find out more about what nutrition is. And of course, after Googling, you find so many different answers that I thought, I really want to know more about this. This is so interesting. And at the same time, I thought, I just looked into my future and I thought, I really want to do something that is very fulfilling and meaningful for me. And so I did not think I would ever go and do grad school. But here I am. I also did not know any dietitians, and my family or friends had never been, you know, to a dietitian, but I started finding out, you know, what the difference is, what the job title, what the career would look like, and that I would need to become a dietitian. So at that point, it just became a decision whether or not to invest 5 years into becoming a dietitian. And so I took a class at a community college, a nutrition class, to see kind of like how I like it or whether or not this would be a good fit for me. And I haven't looked back. And I am so happy. I truly feel happy being a dietitian. And I'm so glad that the goal is finally here, because it's very tough for many students. You know, the road is not easy, but as you all have shared, it is very fulfilling. And I think I can speak for all of us. We're all happy with our jobs and what we do in life.
Absolutely. That's great. Yeah. What about you, Tejal?
So, like, back home, I come from a background where the families, like, they're full of doctors. So, like, you name it, and we have a doctor in the house. And whenever we have the gathering, the talk was always about, like, treatment, this treatment and that treatment, and treatment for this condition and that condition. And that made me think that, if I were to be a patient, I don't think I ever want to be into a treatment phase. So my thinking has always been into, like, the mode of prevention early in my days, and that kind of started me thinking as, what can people do to, like, not have a condition or a situation to go to a doctor? What can they do, as a preliminary phase, to prevent being, like, getting into that phase of a condition, or trying to go to, like, a doctor for a treatment or something. So it was like, my prelude was to getting it worse. And what can be the most important thing to do would be, like, food, because that's what it's the basic, part of everyone's life. And as they say that, let food be your medicine. And, that's how I kind of started thinking on. And then I was talking with my elder sister who was here at that time. And that's how I got into, to know about field of nutrition, and then started looking into it. And then I did my bachelor's back home into field of nutrition, and that's how it kind of started for me. And I'm into, like, prevention. I like into trying to avoid or trying to prevent with, like, and that's why I'm into, like, public wellness and prevention, like, phase. Even when patients, when I see them, I always educate them as, hey, what you can do to avoid another hospitalization. So
Right.
that's how it kind of started for me.
Yeah, and especially with diabetes, that's a big part of it too. So that's great. Just curious, you said that your family, you come from, like, a big family of medical professionals, so did they ever talk about what a dietitian is? Or, I'm guessing, now you tell me if I'm wrong, you said that you came to the US, right? From India?
Right. So like, this is, like, back in, like, really back days. And I don't think at that time the nutrition was that big part of, like, the whole medical system back home. I mean, it was there, like, with Ayurveda and everything, but
Right.
like, a dietitian or the nutrition part was not that elaborated at that time. It is now, like, a big thing, but not when I was, like, really young. This is like when I was in school,
Okay.
and then, yeah, and then I did my master's in Canada. So I was in India, then I studied my master's in Canada, because that was, like, one of the few studies back in the days with, like, flax seeds and diabetes. And from earlier phase, my interest was in diabetes. So that's the reason I went to Canada to do my research and my thesis on that topic. And after that, I came to US, and then I had to do the process again.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah, I was just curious because, with your family, being in the medical profession, that if they would have any idea, and if that kind of prompted you to kind of figure out what, the dietetics field, is, especially in in the medical portion of our field. So that's why I was asking. Curious to know, because I think for the most of us here, I don't know if anybody else's family is in the medical profession, but my parents are engineers, and my dad came to the US from Costa Rica, and my mom is from El Paso, but from a huge, Mexican American family. They went to college to be engineers, and and that's what they kind of knew, and they were very scared. When I first went, oh, I want to do nutrition, they're like, what? And so they're like, can you get a job? So that's kind of one of the things that was I had to show them, like, yeah, I can get a job, and it's and I can have a good career, as a dietitian. So does anybody else's family do you have any medical professionals in your family? I think you said you did, Marty. I think your sister.
She's a dietitian, yeah.
Yeah, but anybody else have any, medical professionals in their family?
My husband is a pharmacist, but my family, like my parents' side, they were just regular folks, no medical background.
Yeah, regular folks.
Regular folks, yeah.
My family also a lot of regular folks.
Yeah.
My dad actually just went to community college, and my mom didn't, do anything.
Yeah.
School. So
Yeah.
I think, and also like to share a little bit about my dad, like they have a very strict idea of what you should do, like to be a successful professional. So he was very happy with my business administration degree, and he was like, oh, my daughter. And once I told him, actually, I'm going back to school and I'm going to keep going to school, I'm going to study nutrition, he's like, why are you doing that? I don't understand, but it's your decision. But he's very supportive now, so thank God.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad they are. Yeah. Well, good. Yeah, no, I was just curious, because I think, having, knowing a dietitian makes it much easier, and kind of knowing, what the steps are to become a dietitian. And I think a lot of people, especially minorities, don't really see that. A lot of minorities really don't get the services of a dietitian, to begin with. Either we don't see them in our families or in our communities, or we don't get their services, so that's just kind of why I kind of wanted to ask that question. And Brianna and I wanted to ask that question because we were just curious, to see what everybody's answers were. But yeah, I'm glad we were able to give all of you guys a say in that. So, all right. I think we'll go to our next question. And I think this is a very big question that could be talked about a lot more. It could probably be a webinar in itself. But were there any barriers during your education or internship to becoming an RD? Did you have any support during your education or internship to overcome these barriers? And so we'll start off with Melissa. Melissa, why don't you just start off? You're already here. So.
Sure, let me just continue.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so were there any barriers? I think there are a lot of barriers in the education that we have to go through. And that is one of the biggest hardships for minority students to really be able to finish this long-term investment, like I was mentioning earlier. However, with those barriers, I feel like there is also opportunities out there somewhere. It's a matter of knowing where to knock, and sometimes knocking to 100 places and finding one or two that will support you. So I think for students, it's very overwhelming to decide to go into the dietetics field. As you all know, a 1 year of unpaid internship is out of the question for a lot of students. And I think that is one of the biggest areas in which we can work on as dietitians, and to kind of just like pave the way for future students. So did I have any support during my education? I actually did. And it took a lot of time spent I applied for any scholarship that I would hear of. I looked online to see if there are any organizations that would support. I actually found I was able to get a grant from the American Association of University Women, and that was not something that was widely known. I received a lot of help from mentors, and that is also one of my biggest and strongest things that I worked on as a student to obtain, because as many of you here today also, we did not know, right? Many dietitians, maybe because I know a lot of my friends, they either know someone or they had been able to shadow someone. So you kind of like, you're more prepared. But for us, we just kind of have to like find someone that will talk to us and give us that time. And I was able to find those people that would spend their time with me during my education journey. So that is one thing that I value a lot, and just really having to put in extra time outside of full-time work and full-time school to kind of like just spend time online, finding what else one could apply for, and then putting in that time to apply for those opportunities. Yeah, so that is kind of my story.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of especially a lot of dietitians have really said that, you know, especially their internship was very difficult, because, you know, having to go either into debt or more debt, just to be able to get, you know, through their internship, and, you know, and then find a job where they could, you know, start paying that back. You know, it's very hard, and is a lot of times just the biggest factor in deciding whether you're going to become a dietitian or not. So yeah, so I get that very much. What about you, Brianna?
I actually didn't even know there was an internship when I first started my education, and I know I hear that from a lot of people. People don't know about the internship. So I think I was like in my junior year when they were like, "Oh, you have to do this internship," and I was like, "What? I have to do another year of school?" I don't understand. I thought I got my degree and I could start working. So I think definitely, yeah, that was the main barrier for me. I was lucky because I graduated in December, so I used from December until August to work full time, and then I was able to raise the money that I needed to do for my internship. And I was also fortunate that my parents paid for my schooling, and I lived with my mom, so then I was able to pay for my own internship out of pocket, which was really nice. And I felt privileged to be able to do that.
Good. Yeah, and I know how that is. Yeah. What about you, Marty?
Well, I had trouble getting an internship. I don't know if it had anything to do with the fact that I'm male or not, but probably more to do with grades. Like my microbiology professor said, you're a good B student, but so the first year I was an alternate and then didn't get it. And so I just worked any old job for a year, and I tried again and was an alternate again. I thought, well, if I don't get it this time, then I'm not meant to be in dietetics. That was just going to be it. But then I did finally get in, and someone confided in me later that they'd had a male intern at this place where I got my internship a few years before, and they'd had a lot of trouble with him. And someone said, we don't want another, whatever this guy's name was. And I don't know if that had any influence at all to the selection committee, but I've always wondered about that. But I mean, I made it finally. And we got a really small stipend. Of course, this was 40 years ago. 1980 was when I was an intern. It was $150 a month. And then I got student loans because my parents would pay for my undergrad, but I had to cover my graduate education, and got loans. And so that's how I made it through. It was the poorest I've ever been in my life. I remember having pasta with ketchup on it one night for dinner because I couldn't afford anything else. But anyway, it all worked out.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame though that they would say that, especially kind of about male male interns, you know, in the internship, you know, now it's kind of like I'm seeing more and more, you know, coming through, which is such a good thing. You know, we do need obviously a diverse group of dietitians, but especially males, you know, they have an important part to play, you know, in the industry, and I'm glad that you made it through. So good. All right, what about you, Tejal?
Yeah, so I think as Melissa mentioned, when you are from out of country and when degrees are you're out of country, there is, you know, there was barrier for sure. I just thought that after doing my master's, you know, when I moved here, I started looking for jobs and everything said registered dietitian, registered dietitian, or eligible registered dietitian, you know, and I was like, what's going on? Where did I miss the boat? And then I started to look into that, and then I figured out that, hey, I have a very long track to, you know, be even a registered dietitian. So, you know, I figured out that, okay, there is a body called, at that time it was ADA. So then I, you know, started looking into that, and then I will still remember that flow chart. It's still somewhere on my desktop, that it had literally a flow chart, what to do, as, you know, to do with your degrees and so on and so forth. And they have like steps. And so I started doing those steps, and I was like, it's more of an expense than your income here.
Right.
And then, so I was like, okay, you know, I just can't wait for that to happen. I need to do in between. And, you know, as my goal was with prevention and wellness and community, so I started to look for work, and then I found position as a nutritionist as one of the community health, and I took up the job that, okay, you know, I'll do something with this later on. And then when I took up that job, that was kind of really helpful, because there was a dietitian over there who said that, hey, you know, you can do these things. And meanwhile, I already got my degrees evaluated, and then I took some courses, got my DPD verification and statement, you know, all those things. And then that's how internship happened to me. And then, you know, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and do this part. And I did that here in Houston, and I was fortunate to do my, you know, my rotations at TMC and Texas Children's and all. So it was a good experience for sure.
Yeah, that seems quite a story though, especially, you know, coming from like out of the country and having to kind of, you already had some very good credentials, you know, especially in a good education, you know, coming from out of the country. But, you know, I guess the U.S. has, you know, its own rules, you know, and its own guidelines of what they want to have. So it kind of, you were forced to go through all of it again. And it seems quite, that's quite a bit. You know, I don't know if I would be able to do it, to be honest, you know, like, man, all over again. Goodness, you know. But that's really interesting. Lubna, I know that you, you know, you had some education outside of the U.S. as well. So did you face similar issues when you came to the U.S.?
Yeah, it was not, I wouldn't call it an issue, because because I got a bachelor's and it was in English literature. So when I got it evaluated, so it gave me the associate degree. So then I had to take other additional courses. So I consider myself very fortunate that I was admitted to the coordinated program in dietetics. So, and that had the internship with that. So that was a big blessing, I should say. So, but it was kind of tough because it's in the coordinated program. So it was a 3 years program, which meant that for bachelor's in 2 years and then master's plus internship in the last year. So it meant that no breaks. Like I remember last year or 2 years, we didn't have any spring break, or we didn't have any summer, so we took classes back and back, and it was kind of tough, like with the family, when you are taking care of 4 kids at home, and my husband was deployed most of the time too. So it was tough in that sense, but I would go with what Melissa said, that the support. So I had support from my mentors too, some of my good friends who told me, yes, you can do it. You can do it. Because I remember it was like coming back from school at night and then just for internship next morning, waking up early and going there and spending sometimes more than 12 hours a day. So I mean, you have been through that.
Right.
But it is rewarding in itself. It had, like, I didn't have the financial issues, but I always applied for the scholarships too. And I was lucky to get a few scholarships, and that helped with the tuition too.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, great. Now, what about you, Whitney?
Yeah, I feel like after listening, I was like, I have no complaints because I did not have kids during my internship.
I know.
Yes, and now going back to school, now having a toddler, it's rough. But yeah, I would say definitely the financial aspect, and kind of like Brianna was saying, I didn't know at first about the internship. And like I would say a lot of our professors really push the internship and the masters, and that was hard because it's like more money. And I think my biggest frustration is the amount of debt that you accrue in our profession. And I don't know, we could probably have a whole nother webinar on this. It's like a lot of places don't offer the debt payment program that other professions do. And I didn't know that. I just assumed like, oh, I'm gonna work in like an under-resourced area and I'll get all my student loans paid back, because I had friends that were like nurses and in other professions, and I didn't know that didn't also apply to me.
Yeah.
And so that was hard. And I think too, the barrier of being an athlete, because my class schedule, and my coach was amazing. She was always like, you're a student athlete. Like, you're always a student first. But some of the DPG courses didn't match up with like our basketball schedule. And we had to fly a lot. So we were 2.5 hours from the closest airport. So we'd have to drive, 3 hours, then fly. And so it was hard. I mean, it was really, really challenging. But I'm grateful that I did it. I love it. I think you said earlier, the field of dietetics is so diverse and unique that you can do so many different things.
Yeah.
And you don't have to feel stagnant. So for that, I'm very appreciative. But it was a hard road. It's a hard road to be a dietitian.
It really is. Yeah. It definitely is. And I think that can be a turnoff, to a lot of people, especially minority students. I think that's kind of one of the reasons why that there aren't as many minority dietitians than, we would hope for. And, that besides, sometimes people just don't know what RDs are, like we said with the first question.
When you take money out, just in what you don't realize too is like you have to take money out for the internship, but you also can't work, and so you're taking out money to live. Like, I had a car note, I had to pay for an apartment. I mean, it's a lot of like living expenses.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And even if you try to make it work, through the internship with having a part-time job or something like that, which I know some people do, at the end of the day, compared to the students that do not have that extra burden, you're not really getting the full experience or the full benefit of your internship if there's something else on your mind. So that can set you back a little bit. Maybe you finished, but you do want to get that quality. And I know with having that financial help or that security, that can help you also believe in yourself and, knowing that you can do it. Because yes, we'll work on the time management, we'll work on the mental health aspect, we'll give it our best. So we just need like a little push.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually went to an internship that did have a stipend. I did my my dietetic internship at the VA Medical Center in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yay! I know.
and the VA dietetic internships, you know, have a reputation as being very intense, and it definitely was. I'm not saying that anybody else's wasn't intense, because I know everybody else's was intense. So I've talked to, you know, lots of people who have gone through different things. Every internships are just intense in general, you know, that's what it is. I definitely had support from my preceptors and other interns, and I was very grateful for that. And I didn't have to pay tuition for the internship. I already had my master's, because I got my bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences from University of South Alabama, and that's when I was wanting to become a doctor. And then after that, I went to Auburn University, got my master's in nutrition. So from there, I just went straight to an internship that didn't have the master's component. And so, you know, I already didn't have to pay for the tuition, the internship tuition, and I did receive a monthly stipend while I was in the internship. And while it was helpful, it was like a little bit helpful, you know, to be honest. You know, it wasn't a big stipend. It definitely wasn't something that I could live off of. It was pretty much enough, maybe just a little bit enough, you know, to cover rent. And then I basically had to borrow money to live, you know, to buy groceries and to pay the rest of my bills, you know. So I had to go into more debt than I wanted to. And I think that is just something that, you know, students, especially I think in this time where education is so expensive, and you really have to look at the cost benefit analysis, if you will, of going to get a degree and then what you're going to be making, you know, in a career that, you know, you want to be in. I think that's something that's very prevalent, you know, on, you know, students' minds right now. You know, everybody's thinking about that, especially with, you know, student debt climbing as it is. So, you know, it's just one of the questions I had, you know, because education in general is difficult for students, well, now just about everybody, you know, minorities or not, you know, but it's especially difficult for people of minority status. So, you know, that's one of the questions we had. And like I said, it could definitely be a webinar all in itself. You know, I think that's one of the big things that, you know, we're having discussions we could have with the academy, and especially now since it's required for you to have your master's, you know, that is something that is really kind of could be a pro and a con, you know, to the dietetics industry. So thanks everybody for your answers. Those were really nice, you know. So we'll go into the next question. So, do you experience any difficulties as a minority RD? Do you feel valued at work? Do you feel heard within the dietetics community? And how can the dietetics community better serve you as a minority member of the dietetics community? We'll start off with Marty.
Let me answer you. The last question that you mentioned first is that there is one thing I've been squawking about for several years is there is no member interest group in the academy for the LGBT community. That's like the one minority that is not represented in any way. And several years ago, somebody started a Yahoo group for LGBT dietitians, but it kind of fizzled out. So I've been telling folks that I know in Chicago that this is something we need to do. But other than that, my experiences the difficulties I faced, I think, were really minor, like annoying things like walking in when I worked at a veterans hospital and the veterans said, "Where's your skirt?"
So all the microaggressions, you know.
Yeah, there you go. We didn't even know what microaggression meant back then. Or I was the first male media spokesperson for the academy, and that opened up a lot of neat opportunities for me. But I remember one time I was scheduled to be on the Today Show, and I'd already flown up to New York, and then at the very last minute, that was canceled. Now, that could have been for 100 other reasons. A bigger news story come up that day. But I always wondered, you know, is it because they decided they didn't want to see a guy in dietetics. Or I was supposed to be, there was a cereal that was doing commercials with dietitians, real dietitians, and I was scheduled to be featured in that commercial. And again, at the last minute, they called me and they said, we really want someone that represents the typical experience for the consumer. So I was like, okay, they don't like men, or they think male dietitians are gay, or I don't know what they thought, but again, it was a minor disappointment. Other than that, I feel extremely well supported throughout my career. When I started my position in Computrition in '93, there was another gay male dietitian working there, and he was out. And so I just decided, hey, I'm just going to be myself and quit hiding anymore. It was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. But beyond that, I mean, I've felt very supported throughout my career with all the clients I work with and the academy positions that I've held and all that. So I don't really have anything that I can say was a huge barrier, more annoyances. Thanks.
That's really amazing to hear, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The microaggressions are real, definitely, for sure. I think both within, sometimes within the dietetics community and with, the people that we work with outside the dietetics community. So I feel your pain there, so yeah. What about you, Brianna?
Let me think. I mean, I feel like just in my position alone, we don't have a lot of minority patients. So I feel like, excuse me, I feel like I struggle with not, I guess I struggle with a lot of minority patients not feeling like they have the access to the treatment that we provide. And then when we do get minority patients and then they do want to work with me, it's like, oh my God, you're Black. I'm so excited to work with you. And then I feel that weight. I think I was talking to you, Whitney, about this before. Then I feel that weight on my shoulders of, I have to be perfect. I have to be the best Black dietitian for them because that's what they're expecting from me. I don't know if I've ever felt like just in like the community of dietetics in general, any like difficulties about being a minority RD. I think what you were saying, Marty, I think it's just really difficult and really unfortunate that when things get canceled, when things get changed, you have to wonder, is it because of who I am, or is that just what's going on? And I think that's really unfortunate to have to think about all the time. It's really sad.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, it definitely pops up into your mind, whether if, I know that it could be 50 million different reasons, like Marty said, but, it's one of the things that still pops in your mind, and it sucks, So do you have anything to add to that, Whitney?
Yeah, I was going to say, Brianna and I were talking, we had started a supervision group for Black eating disorder RDs because it can just be so isolating. One, I don't even think that like eating disorders, one in and of itself in your internship is like this like alluring thing that it's like you have to be this great dietitian to get into, and it's so hard and competitive. But I honestly feel like it's not, and I think we're doing a better job now, but it wasn't even accessible. Like I don't feel like when I got my internship and master's degree, and I went back to Austin to spend 2 weeks to study with a dietitian that specialized in eating disorders, but it wasn't even like a thought. Like I did not know of not one dietitian of color that was doing eating disorders. And I think now we're seeing more and more, but it can be so isolating because yes, when you finally do get like your client who is BIPOC and they have eating disorder, I struggle with imposter syndrome, and Brianna and I were talking about this before, of like, you really want to do everything that you can because that like eating disorder treatment is not going to be like higher levels of care, not going to be accessible for them. But then I also think too, like, especially being Black and living in a larger body, working in eating disorders, sometimes you're literally your client's worst fear of like being in a larger body, being recovered, and then adding on top of this, like Victoria, like you study in Memphis, so you know about the segregation and a lot of racism here.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, it's so rampant. So when you're working with adolescent families, it is very hard, because I had 2 instances this, at the height of a lot of the racial stuff, of an adolescent she was white, and her dad worked in government, but she like spray painted. She turned 16 and spray painted the back of her car Black Lives Matter. And I immediately was like, I took on, and it was my own projection, but I was like, her parents are going to think I influenced this.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought that, because here you are, this Black dietitian, I'm in a bigger body. She was embracing intuitive eating. Her parents had their own issues with their disordered health behaviors. So it just adds another layer to that dynamic, and I had another client who, young adult, went to the protest and got pepper sprayed, and, has a very racially just, family is very racist. And I had to really impact and just deal with a lot of that. And I feel like our internship doesn't prepare minority students for that. They don't prepare students of working with families or clients who inherently have misconceptions about your identity. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. I love my internship, but I did live in Memphis, I think you and I both know, especially Memphis, Tennessee, it's got some issues, it needs to work on itself. I never felt once, in my internship, or at least the directors and stuff, that, that they were putting anything down on me, or, the other, I had an intern with me who was half Black, half Latina, and, there were some instances where we were kind of uncomfortable sometimes, but, it was nothing that, they pressed down on us. And so I felt safe and supported in our internship. But yeah, working in Memphis is difficult, especially as, a minority RD in that respect, I think if my husband hadn't decided to want to go to FSU, I would still be in Memphis. And that's one of the things that really, was in my mind, especially being a white passing Latina, and kind of having to hear some things, people speaking bad about, Latinos, and then having to be quiet, and that's, it's kind of difficult, so I hear that. All right, what about you, Melissa?
Yeah, so as a minority RD, I do currently feel valued at work, and there are actually a lot of minority people that work at my job. But just overall within the field, I think there's still not a lot of us. Today in this room, yeah, there are, but generally speaking, no. But if there is ever an issue that I may encounter where I feel someone may be treating me differently, I usually don't think it might be because of my color, or I do try to speak, and I would like to think of myself as one more dietitian. And I generally try to do that. So one thing that has not happened to me, but I would not like, is, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, but sometimes if there is a workplace and there is talks to be had, they will usually try to volunteer you to speak on topics of diversity or culture stuff. And I would not want to be that person. If that point ever comes, that is not my only role. We all have the same expertise that all dietitians have. So I can speak for that as being something I have noticed that may happen, and minority dietitians may deal with. I have not experienced that, but that would be something that, yeah, that I can point out.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're here, Melissa, as another Latina, because that's kind of one of the things I was kind of worried about, first when I was trying to get this thing, this webinar together. I really wanted another Latina on the panel, just because I feel like, I am a Latina, but, Latinos are not a monolith. We are very diverse, as a people. And so I'm very glad, that, you could bring your own, your own experiences and stories, to this webinar, because, I didn't want to speak for all Latinos,
Right. There may be a little bit of that burden too, like, well, I'm just speaking
Yes.
my experience, but we're all different, and yeah, I'm sure
Absolutely.
all the same.
Yeah. Yeah, and as many of you can see, and like I said before, I'm very much a white passing Latina. People look at me and they see and hear a very typical white American woman, and in a way that works in my favor. People are kind of more likely to trust me and listen to me as a perceived white American woman, both at work in the dietetics community, and it's a huge privilege, for me to have. It isn't really until they see my name on my badge, at work, or when I tell them that I'm Latina, then they're surprised that I am an ethnic minority, and sometimes a lot of people don't know that Latinos, come in all different colors, they speak in all different ways, and they're not exactly as, I guess, sometimes how the media portrays them. I currently live in I live in the Deep South. I live in Florida, in Tallahassee, Florida. So northern Florida, not the fun part of Florida, but the boring part of Florida. But and it's very conservative around here, very much the South, and people there's definitely that type of culture here. And I work in southern Georgia, in a very rural place, and so there have been situations at work, and when people in healthcare, with healthcare, as healthcare professionals, speak kind of very disagreeably and unabashedly, about, Latinos in front of me, and it just got, it's very uncomfortable, and it's pretty much those kind of some of those microaggressions that, Marty, was, discussing, and sometimes I have to validate my identity and they kind of ask me to prove it, by either like speaking Spanish and or kind of, those backhanded comments of like, oh, you speak English so well, and oh, I thought you would be Tanner, or kind of, I bet you were happy to be born in the country, type of thing. That was, that kind of really make you want to scream, but you can't, so there's been a lot of that I have experienced. The good thing is none of it has really come from the dietetics community. It's other healthcare communities that I have kind of had that, and it's kind of also just here in the Deep South, kind of it's just kind of been an issue. And but fortunately, I think as more we're getting more Latino patients around here, so not only or they just see me, and but they see more patients, and they have to understand those patients, and I become much more of a valued worker in those situations, because I can speak Spanish, and and I can help communicate, bring the communication gap with that. So yeah, that's kind of been my experience so far, but hopefully it's not all bad, it's good, but hopefully it'll get better. So
Yeah, definitely. And I know we're a little bit past our time, but I want Tejal and Lubna, I want you both to answer the question, and I also want to pose the question, what do you want other dietitians to know about what it's like working as a minority, what it's like working with minority patients? What do you think other people can take out of this conversation?
Okay, so you want me to answer this question that you just asked?
Sure. You can answer the other question too about any difficulties you experienced.
I agree with all of you, with all of you guys said, and especially you, Brianna, that you mentioned, because now I am in the phase of starting my own business. And like I said, that I consider myself from Pakistani origin. So, but there is a very small Pakistani community. Like in US, we have a little over 500,000 Pakistanis living here. So if I focus my business only for that community, so I am in that phase where I'm undecided which route should I go, or should it be specifically focused on that community or just overall in general. So those are some of the hurdles, but I think we'll be fine. So next question, the next question you asked that, I think you asked that what, can you repeat? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. What do you want other dietitians to know about what it's like to be a minority dietitian and working with minority patients as well?
Yeah, I actually want to address that too, because I feel myself very fortunate that as soon as my husband retired, we finally decided to settle down in Austin. And I actually became the part of the Austin Dietitians Alliance group here. So I started to volunteer with them, and now I'm in a leadership position. I am the director of member engagement, and I am the president-elect for next year. So I think it is very, very important that us as minorities, so we participate in our local dietetic organization. So we want our voices to be heard. And I really like it that this year, actually, we started a new position, and which is the director of inclusion. It is, I'm sorry, it's a new position, so I still do not remember, but director of inclusivity and diversity, I think it's, but I'm sorry, I may be wrong. But I think it is very important because now we are seeing that more and more dietitians of color are participating in or joining our profession, and genders as well. So I think it is very important that we reach out to them. So what I do in our meetings, and now especially we are in the Zoom meetings, but before we went into the quarantine, in our in-person meetings, I would always reach out to the new members or the dietitians of color. And if I knew that somebody, like if I saw somebody is new, so reaching out to them and making them feel welcome in the organization. So I think it is very important that if we volunteer our time, whatever we can, so just to be part of those organizations and make our voices heard too. Yeah, so that's what I just wanted to add here.
Good. What about you, Tejal?
So just going back to the previous question and quick note, you know, I have been very fortunate from, you know, all my past work experience, and I have been speaker for corporate wellness. I have been working in community wellness, you know, community projects, and with inpatient now. So, but with all that experience, you know, I didn't really face any difficulties or anything, but I have been mentoring interns for past all these years, you know, 12 plus years. And as what Lubna mentioned, and she bring out a good point, is that whenever I ask the interns about, hey, do you know anything about your local affiliate or your state affiliate? You know, they come from out of the state as well. So not just necessarily here in Texas or in Houston, but if they're coming in out of state. But there are very, very, I can count them on my like one finger, you know, that handful of them would be knowing something about their affiliation. So I think just, you know, how we don't like food service, but it's there on our exam. So I think just like that, I guess this is the time to revamp the whole, I think the internship, the concept about like, you know, not just have like food service and inpatient and corporate wellness, which is kind of new now, but just those three things areas, but try to include like the clinical informatics, that's new. Try to include like like few days or maybe a week as a part of their rotation with state affiliates, know your local leaders, so that way I guess the present community gets to know the future. It's about we are grooming these interns, it's about embracing, understanding the diversity and the dietetics culture as well. That's something I guess if that happens, that would be really great to mentor these interns into for their future profession. Going to like how to better serve the minority patients or clients, I would just say that just truly demonstrate that you are there to care. And I know that we are expert, but just go with openness of and willingness to like listen and not make assumptions about why you are there. Yeah, you may have the knowledge, but you can always learn. Like every day you can, I learn so much from each of my patients. In order to like give them knowledge or help themselves, you also have to understand if they have that any barrier. That's one of the big thing in diabetes, education, that you have to first break the barrier for them to grasp what you're trying to say. And so I think that's important, as rather show them that you are there to learn as well. And as what one of the point Lubna mentioned, that join the MRGs, the member groups, the DPG groups. I really like that Food and Nutrition magazine have the My Global table series now into that magazine. I'm not sure if you guys have those, but it's a kind of a nice way to look into different cultures, cuisines, and I'm in Houston, so it's one of the top 10 diverse city in US. And when you get chance, if you're going to fancy anywhere, just try to go try different restaurants, try different cuisines, try different recipes. So next time when you are seeing any patient or a client, and when they're talking about food or anything, what that is, rather than just having a book knowledge. How that is, what's the color, what's the taste, what goes in there, what changes you can add into that recipe or that food that will make it healthy, in order for you to give recommendations. So I think that's probably what I would add from my side with regards to that.
I love that advice, Tejal.
Yeah, I really like what you said about, trying different cuisine and, having people, students especially, and practicing dietitians, know kind of, learn the cuisine, have, try it, know what it is, maybe even learn some part of the culture, that, comes with that cuisine. I think it's really important. It kind of gives you what you said, like not just a textbook, introduction or into that. And I think that's really good. Yeah. What about you, Brianna? Were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to ask if anybody had any final thoughts. Obviously these questions we can talk about for hours. Yeah. So does anybody want to say anything final before we end?
Yes, if I can say something. I would just like to, at this point, address the students, because I know the Build Up Dietitians community also has some students that are currently trying to reach that end goal, right, that we all had at one point to become a dietitian. Is don't be afraid to knock on doors. someone will always be there to help you, someone that you can identify with, and don't be afraid to ask questions, to ask for opportunities, because someone will give them to you. And so as dietitians, one thing that we can do to help students is really become mentors, because people that don't have those mentors available either in their family or friends, they really are looking for a professional to look up to. And just as something as little as actually believing in that student that you're helping can really help them, you know, work a little bit harder, or just really finish through that end goal. And then another thing is in the financial aspect. Donate to opportunities available for students, because one way to really work on that diversity is being able to have more professionals that can truly represent the diverse community that we serve, because we can learn about culture, you know, everyone can learn about culture, but we really have this unique set of skill sets, like speaking Spanish, like the patients. It's just the way that it works. They will connect with you better. They will listen to you better. That connection you cannot take away. So just really one of my hopes going forward too is really to be able to get more students through that finish line. We really need to work on that. So I would encourage all dietitians to really understand the importance of having more diverse dietitians, and just really help any students that you come in contact with.
Yeah. Whitney,
Absolutely. Very well said. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good.
And
Anybody else?
I just wanted to say I'm really grateful for you both, Victoria and Brianna, doing this, because it's been awesome meeting all these amazing dietitians of just different backgrounds. So I have a lot of gratitude that you guys thought of this and coordinated this, because I think it's just really neat to get to share a little bit of each of our lived experience and meet other colleagues in the field. So I love that. I have two interns, and one has a different identity. She identifies as multiracial Puerto Rican. So I'm excited that I can share with her and connect her with other RDs that share her identity.
Absolutely. And thanks to all of you also for coming and spending some part of your, you know, your free time on a Saturday, you know, to come and, you know, talk to us about work. You know, it's what everybody wants to do on a Saturday, right? So thank you so much. And we really appreciate, you know, all of you being here. And we do, want to build you up, you know, as dietitians. So we really appreciate, you know, you spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
For having us. Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Good. Good.
Have some more of these.
Yes.
Yes, we'll get together next time, and everybody, you know, just bring drinks and it'll be fun. So.
I just wanted to add, like, you know, if you don't mind sharing our emails with each other, and if everyone's okay with that, you know, that way we have our contacts, you know, because I think this is kind of a networking. This is a good way of, you know, knowing dietitians from other areas, from other parts of, you know, areas of dietetics as well. So it would be nice if we can still stay connected. And I like your idea about drinks. I'm up for it.
Oh yeah, I'm down. Yeah, no, absolutely. I would love to share my contact information with all of y'all and keep in touch. You know, I wish all of y'all the best, especially in this time, you know, where things are very chaotic. You know, the world seems like it's going upside down. But you know, everybody keep safe out there. Let's stay in touch, and you know, I wish you all the best.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you.